What's going on, everybody? The Zelda Religionist here for another episode. And if you remember last time, I talked about Zelda 2 and how everyone hates it for some reason and why it gets so much disrespect. Well, I also mentioned Ocarina of Time as well. And I started talking about the ending of Ocarina of Time, but I stopped myself because I didn't want to drag that video out too long, so I figured I'd do it in the next episode. It's finally here. We're going to talk about the ending to Ocarina of Time. Not after final boss fight, like how the game concludes. We're talking full build-up to the ending. And why it's so damn cool. So you went through the whole game, from the adult portion, going through all the temples, getting all the medallions, and you get word to go to the Temple of Time. Someone's waiting there for you. And you do, and Sheik is standing there, and he reveals himself to be not quite who he's been building himself up to be. Because he's not a he. She's a she. Sheik turns out to be Zelda. And, which is no secret by now. Everyone knows that. Well, should anyway. So Sheik's facade is finally dropped, and we now have standing in front of us adult Princess Zelda, who we've not seen yet through the whole adult portion of the game. And she's talking to us, and classic conversation. I can't remember what's all said, but she's basically telling you that now's the time. We gotta go fight Ganon. Well, Ganondorf. We've only had Ganondorf so far in the game. The Temple of Time starts shaking a bit, and by a bit I mean a lot. And you just see this pink crystal come over Princess Zelda and enclosing her inside of it. And you hear Ganondorf's voice and his laugh, and he starts talking. He's like, I knew if I let this twerp roam around, that you'd finally reveal yourself Princess Zelda. And he takes her by making her float through the top of the roof, or vanishing as she gets to the top of the roof of the Temple of Time. And then you get to go straight to Ganondorf's castle, and you are met with the sight of this dark, evil castle. If you went to Hyrule Castle location first after becoming an adult, you would have seen this much earlier. But if you decide you want to wait to get to see the castle, you do it at this point. As you go across, as you get to the edge of the cliff where there is no bridge to get to the castle door, Link is looking around, and you hear the sages talk. I think it's Rauru who you hear talking. You just see these. It just starts raining the colors of the sages, of these light orbs, and they build you a bridge across to Ganondorf's castle. And as you enter, you are met with this quite fitting music for this castle. And you get to the main center room. The center column is guarded by this force field of some sort. It's making weird warbly noises. And you look around, and there are six doors going around the circle of the room. And at the top of each door lies the emblem of the medallion. Basically, you have 1 to 2 room versions of these dungeons that you've gone through the whole game, but they're a specific puzzle that you have to figure out. You solve all 6 puzzles, and you get rid of the barrier that is going around the center column. You walk into the mouth of this face shape over the door, and then you hear it. You hear the organ of Ganondorf's theme that we've heard in Link to the Past. It's very low in volume, kind of muffled, but still enough to where you can clearly hear what's playing. You go up the stairs, and you start your ascent up the tower of Ganondorf's castle. And as you get into each room going up, you have to fight. Iron Knuckles, Stelphos, Donalthos. I think that's it. I can't fully remember. But you're fighting in every room upwards. Or you're fighting in every room as you go upwards. And then you reach this room that has a big square column in the middle of it. And there's 2 doors, one of which you came through, the other adjacent that way, thereabouts. There's pots for a restock on each corner of the room, and the music has gotten louder at this point. You go through that door that's on your side, and then you have this spiraling staircase, stained glass windows going against the outside wall of the staircase. And as you climb those stairs, it gets louder and louder and louder until you're right at the top of the tower, and you're right outside the door to where Ganondorf is. You open that door, and you're greeted with the bearded ginger himself playing his own theme on an organ, a very big organ too. Zelda floats in her pink crystal at the top of the room, and the Triforce starts resonating. You see the glow on Zelda's hand, you see the glow on Link's hand, and you see the glow on Ganondorf's hand. After he talks to you, of course. He stops playing his organ. He turns around to you, says, "These toys are too much for you to handle. I'd like them back." He holds up his hand, and you see the Triforce glow on his hand. And then he floats up into the air, and your battle begins, playing Powerball tennis with the Dark Wizard himself. And then, once you've had enough rounds, and you beat him at his own game, he coughs up some blood. If you're playing the original release of Ocarina of Time, that is. If not, he pukes up green blood. And he collapses to the ground. Zelda's free from her crystal. The castle starts collapsing around you, and you gotta get the hell out of there. As you do, more Stalfos show up, keeping you from Zelda in a ring of fire, and you have to fight them. And you're on a time limit too, adding to the intensity. Once you make it out of the castle, it collapses behind you. Link and Zelda have a little bit of a conversation, and you hear a rumble and a thud. Link and Zelda turn to it, and Link decides to go investigate. As he does, more fire goes around the perimeter of where the castle was, and this Polyrol just explodes upward. Ganondorf rises from it, holding out his hand, revealing the Triforce is still with him. He convulses for a bit while he's in the air, and then he transforms into Ganon, the beast. We have now seen the birth of this creature that we have fought in the original Legend of Zelda. Link to the Past. Link's Awakening. Of course, Link's Awakening here was a shadow, so don't count. So, just a Link to the Past. We see the birth of this creature, and he's not messing around anymore. It's either kill or be killed at this point for him. And so, your battle resumes in the rubble and the destruction of this castle, with fire going around the rim of this land, keeping Zelda from interfering, keeping you from escaping. The music at this point gets awesome. It makes you feel that you may not make it out alive. Even Navi herself talks to you and says, "This is it, Link. I'm not leaving your side. Let's do this." Basically the gist of what she says. And you go. But not before Ganon is thrashing about his swords. You go to block it with your Master Sword. It leaves your hand because he hits it. Goes over the fire right beside Zelda. You are now left with your bow and arrows, your light arrows, and the big Goron sword. You shoot him in the face with your light arrow. He gets stunned. You roll between his legs, and you slash at his tail. And this beast is like very, very tall. He's much taller than you. After enough damage is dealt, he's temporarily stunned, trying to regain himself. The fire is down. You now have a shot to go get your Master Sword, so you may deal the final blow with the Sword of Evil's Bane. As you deal more damage, he's finally weakened enough to where you're ready to kill him. And then Zelda holds him with her power. And then it is time. You take your Master Sword in hand, you slash at him, and you stab him directly between the eyes. As he roars in pain, Zelda calls to the sages, and then they seal him away. He vows revenge someday, if not on Link and Zelda, on their descendants. Link and Zelda are talking in the sky with Zelda's lullaby playing in the background. She says, "I'm sorry for getting you into all this mess. It's my fault. I never meant to drag you into all this, but I will set things right." She takes the Ocarina of Time in hand, plays the Song of Time, sends Link back to his own time, to when he was just a young kid. He lays the Master Sword to rest, walks out of the Temple of Time. He goes to Princess Zelda to warn her about the upcoming attack from Ganondorf and how they can prevent it. And the game ends. Yeah. It's awesome. It's a great build-up to the final fight, and it's just an awesome atmosphere during the fight. One of the best Ganon fights in my opinion. And what makes it great, in my opinion, is that we get to see Ganon come to be. Because the whole game we've only had Ganondorf and his human form that we haven't seen yet in any Zelda game during their releases. And we finally see him become the Beast, which he pretty much stays for the remainder of upcoming Zelda games until Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, when he's freed and he sets out on their descendants. And then he becomes the Beast in those games as well. But this is the birth of the Beast. And also when Zelda sends Link back in time at the end of the game, she has to rebuild Hyrule Kingdom because that time period is still going on. Link may have went back in time, but Zelda was still there in that ruined kingdom that she had to rebuild and take charge of. And in that time period there was no Link. Link had been sent back, so therefore the hero of that time was gone. When you think about it that way, it's really awesome. And kind of sad, really. Because if Ganon was to break free in the future from that time, there'd be no hero to stop him. And that's why Ocarina of Time, at least for me, is one of the best, because it has such an awesome final portion to the game. With Ganondorf and the ending, and the fight with Ganon, it's just so altogether awesome. The music helps in the situation. It gives the intensity to the moment. And it's just like, holy shit, Link can die here. We gotta prevent that. And we do. Unless Ganon does kill him, in which case we're now going to Link to the Past and that portion of the timeline. So either way, during the ending, you're going to one of the three games: Link to the Past, Twilight Princess, or Wind Waker, depending on how you beat it, and depending on how you want the story to continue. Not Twilight Princess, I was wrong. Majora's Mask. Link to the Past, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker. So, with that being said, next time let's talk about Skyward Sword. Because Skyward Sword is, it's a rather lengthy game, but it's got its moments, and majority of it is really good, and I do enjoy it. But we'll talk about why next time. We'll talk about the ending of that as well. So, until then, you guys take care. This has been the Zelda Religionist, and highly bless.